Within his first 3.5 years, this incredible man has closed over 200 million in volume, 5 million in commission, over 300 deals, and is carrying over 25 listings at any given time, all entirely free from YouTube. And here's the kicker. He did this all in his first 3 years as a new agent in a new market who didn't know anybody. Today, I've got the pleasure of bringing back on Soomin Kim, who is one of the best to ever use YouTube to generate consistent closed deals. And this time, he's sharing the things he's never talked about before, the secrets of what it actually took to balance scaling his YouTube channel and converting all these deals while balancing family, the nuances of how he was able to generate a ton of listings from his free YouTube videos. Most people think it's all about buyers, but he cracked the formula of how to generate listings and sellers from his content, and he finally decided to reveal it in this one video. This is packed full of information that I've genuinely never seen Suman or anybody else reveal on YouTube, not even in the past interviews that we've done together. So this is going to be something that will give you the roadmap of how you can start today and in the next year close over $1 million in commission like he did in his very first year from his YouTube channel. Now, two quick things before bringing on Suman. Number one, I will link his YouTube channel below so that you can check out all the content that we're talking about, especially a couple of videos that he pinpoints were the catalyst to skyrocketing his channel and his business with clients. And number two, I will link his calendar below because he's helped a ton of agents just like you go from struggling to launching their channel to closing deals every single month for free. So if you want his mentorship for free, just click that link and book that call. But without further ado, this is mind-blowing. I don't say that lightly because, again, I've had multiple conversations with Suman and I've never seen him reveal the majority of these, including how to turn your weaknesses and limiting beliefs into massive strengths and opportunities so you can make the next year the best you've ever had. So let's bring on the king of YouTube, Soomin Kim. Well, Suman, super excited to have you back, man. You know, this is probably your fourth time coming on here, and we seem to do this every single year. And every single year that I have you back, you end up achieving some ridiculous new milestone. And it's just been so incredible to see your journey, and really excited to kind of unpack a different perspective that you shared with us a couple of months ago that I think is going to be one of the most critical things that's actually going to help agents succeed when it comes to YouTube. But for anybody that might have missed the other three, why don't you give yourself a quick introduction, who you are, where you're from, and what got you to become, you know, the poster child for YouTube as a real estate agent?
I love it. Hey, I appreciate being back, Mike. It's been an incredible journey. For those that don't know my story, obviously you guys can always backtrack to some of the interviews that Mike and I have done. But look, essentially, I'm still very much a newer agent. I've been licensed now for approximately like almost 4 years and a little less than 3 weeks, right? And so my story is unique in the sense that 4 years ago, in the middle of 2020, I relocated my family from the state of California and we relocated to Texas. I didn't plan on doing real estate. I had no experience in real estate, never sold a home or anything like that. But while I was here and while settling in a brand new state in a new market, I decided to make this wild idea that, hey, perhaps maybe I should go into real estate, going to the exam prep courses, taking my license, getting licensed, interviewing brokerages, and seeing what the heck can I do to even effectively find some element of success in real estate in this profession. And I interviewed all these different brokerages. A lot of them told me the same thing, and I started to pick it up that a lot of these brokerages, good brokerages, well intended, but the message was the same. And the message for me as a new agent with no experience in a new market with no sphere of influence would essentially tell me that I would have to pay my dues for the first few years, shadow people, take on very traditional methods of trying to break through, boots on the ground. And it wasn't until I came across Mike Sherrard online, and he sent a different message to me. You know, when I connect with you, Mike, I remember you essentially said, look, if you can leverage these tools, I mean, those traditional things can work, they're just not efficient, but utilize these tools of, you know, social media, YouTube, video content, especially being brand new in a brand new market without any contacts, it might be your best shot, you know? And I remember hanging up with you on that Zoom call, and comparing you to the other 10 brokerages and the recruiters and leaders I spoke with. And the most challenging thing for me was the fact that I was in a new market, and I always thought that I would have to join someone that was close by, maybe in an office, someone that I can get coffee with and shadow and do ride-alongs with. And I had this decision to make to partner with someone in Canada, based upon the philosophy to which his training was so contrasting to everyone else. I made that decision, happened to be obviously the right decision, changed my life in 4 years from zero to 200 million in closings. Um, and probably exceeded that now. It's been absolutely wild. I don't know. I can't say that I wouldn't have figured out something to break through, but there's no way, Mike, and I'll be the first to admit, there's no way I would have the parabolic trajectory to which I did if I went a more traditional route without, the trainings that you put together and your support. So, um, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, straight up, I thought I was just lucky, and maybe timing was a part of it, and timing is certainly a part of any endeavor, for sure. But it has a lot to do with just executing upon what you put out there, Mike. So sitting here grateful, sitting here just reminiscing a little bit of how quickly those 4 years flew by. So man, happy to be here.
Yeah, dude. Well, and I'm grateful for all those kind words, and I appreciate that. And it's crazy as you say, time flies. I remember that call in two condos ago before I got this house, and just sitting there on the phone with you, and you were no joke. You had good questions. You were serious. You knew what you wanted, and you wanted to do something different. And I remember just hearing the confidence in your voice of this guy's going to do something special, whether he comes here or goes somewhere else. This is the type of guy that has work ethic that's going to go make magic happen regardless. So grateful and honored to be on the journey with you. uh, you know One of the things we didn't really cover in the other three conversations was the perspective that you now have looking back on transforming weaknesses into strengths. And you've been able to impact so many agents and help them thrive on YouTube. I've trained over 6,000 agents, and every time I see somebody struggling with their journey on video or camera, it's always riddled with excuse. It's always riddled with why I can't get started. I'm a perfectionist. I can't do this because it won't work for me because. And you have a radically different perspective that I think is going to really impact a lot of people. I'd love for you to talk about, you know, one way you could have viewed your journey and some of the excuses you could have had, but then how you translated that into strengths that allowed you to, again, close over 200 million in 3.5 years.
Yeah. So, no, you're absolutely right. Here's what I would say, and I want to preface it by starting by saying everything that I share, even on this call, on these, or anytime I'm even asked to share, I never did what I did so that I can train on it. I did what I did so I can figure it out and provide for my family. It's now in hindsight that I can actually look back with fresh perspective, with a little clearer idea of that path to be like, oh, this is what I did that, and this is what I was thinking that made that work. So I never did it to train on it. I actually did it just to do it. And so part of that, 4 years now into this profession, into my journey, I would say the first 2 years was really just trying to prove to myself that I can be effective and efficient and productive. Never did I think I'm going to influence others, train others, build a group, attract agents. I didn't think of any of that. I just did it to get it done. Now that I've kind of passed that part of proving to myself that I can actually functionally, transact as a real estate professional, I can look back and clearly see a path where I can say, you know what, it's because of the way I thought about that. And that proved to be right. There's so many things, Mike, in my life, if I'm open and honest, as an entrepreneur, as a serial entrepreneur, there's plenty of things that I failed at, and in hindsight, I can clearly say, I wish I would have done this different. I wish I would have done that different. Uh, this would have saved me a lot of pain and time, right? But when I look at my real estate journey, like, and certainly you had a lot to do with it, but this is probably one endeavor of my life. When I look back, I don't know that I would have changed too much, right? It's almost like, and by the grace of God, like that steps were like just put out there for me, making the pivotal decisions and taking action at the exact right time or as immediately as I can. So a couple of that is looking back at what my insecurities were. So what were my insecurities? I think about that. And I feel like that's part of my story, right? I think that's why my story gets around. A lot of my phone calls I take when agents reach out to me is like, Suman, I heard your story. That's crazy. And ultimately, it's just a really, really challenging position that I was in. ultimately, as a brand new real estate professional, your greatest source of value when any broker just brings you on is like, who do you know? Right? Do you have any aunts or uncles that are in this area? Did you go to high school nearby? Do you have any friends and family that you can all let them know that you're now a real estate professional? You're the one to be selected the next time they think about buying or selling their home. Like this is the greatest attribute that you have as a brand new person coming into real estate when you have no experience. Well, I didn't have that. I looked at each person, every brokerage that I interviewed and said, I'm brand new. I don't have any experience. I never sold a home before. I don't have a sphere. I'm sorry, I don't have a sphere. I don't have a network. I don't have any old high school reunion friends that I can call upon. Even if I let everyone on Facebook know that I'm a brand new real estate agent, because I'm now a real estate agent in a brand new market in the city, it's very little effectiveness because most of my circle and sphere is in a completely different state. And so I started to think about all these disadvantages that I have. So I quickly asked myself, I'm either just never going to get it going and quit because those excuses are actually quite valid and powerful. It's just not, it's like, hey, I want to be a professional basketball player, but you're 4 feet tall. It's like, gosh dang it. That's the one thing that you actually need. And it's hard enough, even if you have height. Right. And so for me, I made a decision pretty quickly that I'm going to have to psychologically flip that on its head. In other words, I started to think to myself, wow, I just relocated from one state to another, and I have no friends and family in sphere. I wonder how many other people might be considering doing the same thing. In hindsight, historically, that was a very monumental year for relocations here in the States, right? I didn't know that. I just said, look, this is an insecurity that I have, and maybe other people are doing the same thing. So maybe I might not be able to effectively serve people or influence people within the state of Texas, but gosh darn it. What if they're going to do the same thing that I did from another state? What if people coming from Washington or California or other places that are moving in here? Maybe I can connect with them on an emotional appeal. And in fact, they should trust me more than they trust someone that's lived here their whole life because they don't have any other environment understanding what is different. I'm coming from a different state, so I have to come here with the perspective of a visitor, of a relocator, of someone that's insecure and moving. And so maybe that will be a strength of mine. Heck, you know what? In my first video, I'm going to talk all about my emotional and financial and all of that endeavor of what it feels like to relocate as a family. Heck, I'm going to do that. And by and large, Mike, that was the flag I waved. I waved the flag. I took a weakness of not knowing anyone, of being brand new, of being a stranger to a land, and I carried a flag of saying, "Well, I'm sure there's other people that feel the same way. Let me carry that flag." So that started that journey of taking every insecurity that I have and then finding a way to flip that and pivot that to a strength. So and it went from there. Okay, I'm a relocator. I don't know anyone. I'm going to carry that flag. Hey, I don't feel like I fit in. I look a little different. So maybe I can leverage that somehow through content. Hey, you know what? I'm not young and I'm not living in downtown in high-rise condos next to where everything is hanging out. I'm going to talk about what it's like to raise a family in the suburbs. So everything that I felt like was a weakness, I just started to get the theme of flipping that to a strength, and that's continued even till today.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and again, the power perspective is everything. Your perspective will be your passport to your prison. You pick, which one you'd rather it be. Do you want to use it to your advantage, or do you want to use it as an excuse and a scapegoat? And that brings me to another really critical topic that I think a lot of people are going to resonate with is you not buying into excuses. And let me kind of frame this a little bit and give some
Mhm.
context. When I look back at your journey, there's kind of three different things I'd love for you to address. The first being that y- you balancing a family were still editing your own videos and the first to have properties up on whatever new home tour was the most relevant. That's one thing you can look at. The second thing that could have gotten in your way that you didn't use as an excuse is you had medical conditions and you were dealing with health issues. And then the third is you add a new baby on top of that, and you have all of these compounding things of, I hear this all the time. I don't have time for that. And you've never used that excuse. You've rather said, I'm going to make this a priority despite health, family, the volume you're doing, while still finding ways to edit those videos yourself and get it out there to be the first on the go. Do you want to kind of talk about how you were able to manage all of these different external factors while still being consistent? Because that seems to be what throws most people for a loop.
Yep, yep. No, for sure. I think you're right, Mike. Like at the end of the day, like as humans psychologically, like we often get want to give ourselves an out, right? We want to just in case I fail, I have to make sure there's valid reasons why I did. And we actually start with that a lot of times, right? We start with the fact that like when we start so to answer your question, to begin, like a lot of agents that reach out to me, they want to maybe get on video or do this. They start with the preface of saying, "Well, I don't have that what you have over there, Suman. I don't have new construction. I don't have I don't speak that way. I'm not really like they're already calling me and then telling me what they lack, based upon what they're comparing themselves to, right? And there's something really unique about real estate, right? Because it's still a very empathetic profession. In other words, humans are still connecting with humans, and subliminally, they're connecting with them in different ways, right? And so, first thing I want to encourage everyone that's watching this, whatever lack you might feel, whether you're shy, whether you're introverted, whether you feel like there's not beautiful home that you're showing in the market to which area, just understand that like your uniqueness of who you are is going to attract who you need to attract, right? You're going to oftentimes attract people in the same age and stage. And ultimately, as far as your market goes of what you have, whether they're newer homes, resale homes, dilapidated homes, farm and ranch, land, plenty of acreage, or a lot of new construction, people are ultimately still looking to sell and move into that area. So they're looking for content. So regardless of what your market is, you're going to show off the elements to which people are attracted to your market. So keep that in mind. But all that to say is, I think there's a couple ways that I want to answer that, Mike. One is that the way that you have taught me to build this business with the efficiencies and leveraging video content, it's probably the only way I could have done it. When dealing with with a third child, with dealing with like autoimmune health issues, with dealing with just life in general, and then trying to build a real estate profession on a high level for high production, there's no way I could have done this with the one-to-one response of walking door to door or passing out flyers or just working hours in open houses like that. I just don't have the time for that. So the efficiency of video content was that I can concentrate myself at a very focused time to go out there and create content, put that time away, sacrifice that time away from family to utilize to make that content. And then once I make it, I'm editing it, I'm uploading it, and then allowing me to live my life, handle what I need to handle in life and family and every other aspect of my life while that video is doing that work for me. So, one thing that I would say is that leverage of video content was so powerful. A lot of agents spend so much time even interviewing for an opportunity to serve a client. What I mean by that is oftentimes they'll say, Suman, or hey, Jeff, I'm interviewing for other brokerages or for other agents, and you're one of them. Tell me what you can do for me, what I can work with, why I should work with you. And then sometimes they end up interviewing for like a week or two. After 2 weeks to say, hey, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I just want you to know that you're awesome, but we decided to go another way, right? And you just spent, 2 or 3 Zoom calls with this potential client to now be turned away. That kills me. It breaks my heart. So what video has done for me is done all that legwork for me. It's interviewed. People are seeing how I talk, what my philosophy is, what my energy is like, how I communicate, and they're already making their decision to work with me or not work with me. But if they choose to work with me, they call me. I'm not interviewing for the position. I'm not interviewing for the opportunity. They're calling me because they've decided upon that. And that has saved me so much time. So the efficiency of that type of video content and getting yourself out there, getting your face out there and your voice out there is constantly working for you. But there's no substitution for work ethic, Mike. Like either you have it or you don't, or either you're motivated enough to make it happen or you don't. And I want to be very sensitive because I know there's so many young agents out there that are so motivated that execute. We have so many in our group that I actually look up to. But for me, I wasn't that young individual. I'm not some 18 to 21-year-old breaking into a young professional career. I'm, a 40 something year old individual that has a family. So I don't have time to waste. I don't have time to try something or to test it. I'm executing on it and I'm either going to break through or I'm going to move on to what's next. So I think that mindset really helped me. And ultimately the things I've done in the past have added up and parlayed me into a position to take advantage of what I'm doing today, you know? So it's just at the end of the day, it's just work ethic. It's saying, look, we're gonna get this done. And I think people just don't understand how hard it is to break through in anything, and it's often harder than you think it's going to be, you know? And so I always kind of knew that from some of the things I've done in the past. So I just worked, man. I just worked, you know, like
Yeah.
I really did. And I'm not saying it's the healthiest way, right? I think what 2021 was incredibly, it was, it was, it was like an ultra marathon. Like I was sprinting 24/7. And, but the truth is, you'll have to any farmer, when the season is there and the rain is there and the soil is right, you have to sacrifice and you have to plow those crops because there's going to be droughts in the future, and you're going to only wish that you did more in the times that the rain and the elements were perfect. You know?
Yeah, dude, and you know, I can attest to this. I've you know, based on time zone differences, I've seen and talked to you, texted you while you're editing videos at 3 in the morning. Like I've seen what you've done, and you know that actually leads me to a really critical talking point that I'm curious to know your answer on because I think it's going to relate to a lot of people. uh, Two components to this. The first being when it gets overwhelming, when it gets crazy, how do you find that motivation? And the second kind of component to that is how do you navigate that with your family? Do you have an open, honest conversation with your wife and say, hey, dear, you know, the next couple months are going to be a grind. I'm just letting you know this is what I'm doing. Or, you know, how do you have that conversation so that your family knows like daddy's here to serve and he's doing this for you so that it doesn't cause a different dynamic in the family unit?
No, that's a great question, and I don't think there's ever a perfect answer because at the end of the day, look, the most precious and finite thing that we have is time. Like there's no getting it back, right? If we waste it, it's wasted. If we spend it, we spend it. So it's a consciousness of understanding that yes to anything professional is saying no to my family, which is a conversation I have with a lot of agents. I'm always like, look, I don't mind losing out on a deal. I don't mind maybe not getting the commission on something. But what hurts me the most is when my time is wasted. You know, like that kills me because that could have been spent towards a new memory with my, you know, with my family. But all that to say is, you know what? Like having talked to enough agents, whether in the real estate profession or any other profession where there's an independent endeavor that someone's trying to achieve, right? Maybe someone has a full-time job and trying to build another side business or they're trying to do something. One, I'm gonna be straight up, and this might be hurtful to some, but I'm just gonna tell you, like, your greatest strength is gonna if you're married, your greatest strength can be your partner, you know? Um, your spouse, your partner in any type of entrepreneurial endeavor. Your greatest obstacle can also be your partner, you know? And there's no way around it. Either they're going to support you and they're going to cheer you on. And because it's hard enough, even if they support you, but if they're going to be in the way and they're going to give you a hard time, they're going to make you feel guilty. Man, why are you doing that? Why are you spending your time? Why are you wasting your time there? Why are you trying that? It's not working. You got to quit now. You know, that is going to be your greatest. So for me and my marriage, that communication has to be clear. This is what we're trying to do. This is what I'm looking to achieve. This is why I believe the timing is right. It's gonna be hard. I'm gonna be in and out. This is a conversation I have with my kids a lot too. You're gonna see me in and out a lot, but these are the times I'm gonna put away for you. This is the day that we're gonna be doing things, but this is gonna be a tough season. But I promise you, it won't always be like this, you know? So it's definitely an agreement. It's a teamwork for sure, especially those that have children. It's a true understanding of teamwork that I am making an agreement with my wife to say, this is a season. This is what we're trying to achieve. Are we on the same page? You handle that. I got this, and let's go. Hands in. We'll break on three. 1, 2, 3, break, right? But that's the truth. And I've seen when that partner or that spouse is not supportive of how much it deteriorates someone's stamina and endeavor to continue on because it's hard because at the end of the day, that's someone that you care about. That's someone's feeling that you care about. It's someone that you hold probably the most weight when someone says something. So it's definitely a conversation that I have. But at the end of the day, also, Mike, you have to produce. Like if I'm telling my wife, look, I'm sacrificing these weekends, this time, we're not going to go on some dates. I got to go film content. Like I'm going to be in and out. You're going to handle all the kids for the entire day today because I got two different clients that I'm going to do half the day, splitting them up. I can only say that for so long. But if I'm not producing and I'm not and that money is not coming in or there's nothing transactionally being done, then that lifeline is pretty short. You know what I mean? It really is
Yeah.
short. So you have to prove to them. This is why, um, man, I'm gonna get raw. I've been around so many people that are not doing what they need to do, but yet maybe their partners think they're doing everything they should be doing. And
Mhm.
they might think like, "Oh, wow, this person is working so hard." So I'm like, "Dude, I know he's not working hard. They're it's actually an escape for them, and they're not doing the executed things that they need to do." So again, I know that's not so nice to say, but I've just seen it. So I would say we have to look ourselves in the mirror and be like, "Truly, am I executing to this?" Because that is the most precious time that I have, and I want to spend it wisely. But we have to prove to them too. We have to prove to our partners what that we're doing something, right? You know, there's a game that I grew up with. It's an old school video game called Pole Position. It's basically a racing game. And it's like a 90s game, 80s game, right? But ultimately, you have a time limit and you're going to run out of time until you hit that checkpoint. Once you hit that checkpoint, it releases 3 more minutes or 2 more minutes and you buy more time. That's the way I look at an endeavor of beginning of anything. You have a certain time limit. If you don't prove or show something, usually that time will eventually run out. But if you can show them something, something's been done, even if it's taken a little bit longer, that hope does exponentially grow. More time is given, and then it gives you more time to kind of get to that next one. Now you get to that next position, resetting your time in less time, so forth and so on. So, yeah,
Yeah. I love that, dude. And I think, it goes back to, you hear some people say like, execute like your life depends on it because it actually does. And I see this all the time too, is people are being busy, they're not being productive and not realizing that, time does run out as you're alluding to. Like so many people are kind of taking the stance of, well, if I don't get it done this week, that's cool. I got next week. Well, is next week guaranteed? Is it promised? You don't know. And a lot of people are very casual about this. And what I've seen with every single person that I've ever looked at that's struggling, they have multiple gears left in the tank and they're just not using them. They're playing to participate. They're not playing to win. And when I see people like you that are playing to win, they operate on a completely different level.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
and
actually Mike, that's actually one of the greatest things detriments I've seen in real estate. Like speaking to agents in general, or just seeing it from the outside without being a real estate professional, is that there's so many agents that rub shoulders with people that do well. They're in the same office with people that do well. They get to claim that they know that person, but because they're around them, they feel like somehow it's a reflection of who they are too. Hey, I'm around this top producer. I rub shoulders with him or her. So that makes me look good as well. And we get people stuck and then they brag more about the people that they're around. They brag more about their office or what they're doing or what they've achieved. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm all for marketing. I'm all for growing yourself into an environment. But it's a trick, man. Like
yeah,
at the end of the day, like what are you doing? What are you taking home? What are you bringing home for your family? And a lot of agents get stuck in the idea of being around an environment, even if it's personal development, even if it's anything, they get stuck in an environment where they're around people doing it. So it makes them feel like they're doing it. But gosh dang it, like you got to look in the mirror. Are you doing it? Are you executing? Because that doesn't being around those people doesn't pay your bills.
dude, 100%. And
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people, especially in real estate, that just become serial learners.
I
And
know.
the two quotes that I really kind of lean on, when I'm auditing my own business, is that you don't achieve your goals, you achieve your standards and your habits. And anytime I've looked at somebody like you or anybody else that's achieved that seven figure and beyond level, like their standards and habits are relentless, they're clear, they're defined, and they're the holy bible for that person in terms of how they operate. And then there's the other component to that, which is that discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. And
Let's
when i
go.
look at when I look at you, when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it when you say you're going to do it. There's so many people that will listen to this or hear your story or listen to you on stage and they'll say, "Oh, I'm fired up. Like I can do that too." It's not that hard. If he can do it, I can do it. There's a lot of validity to that because it's true. It's just where they go wrong is they say, "I'm going to start this on Monday." Monday comes, they don't do it. There's no discipline. They continue to not follow through with the commitments they make to themselves. And I think that's where that lack of confidence comes when a lot of people are getting in front of the camera is they continue to disappoint themselves. Every time they say they're going to do something, they don't do it. And now they have a lack of trust with themselves. But that kind of transitions into, something tactical that I'd love to explore with you, because I hear perfectionism all the time. And I think perfectionism is the most bullshit excuse in the entire industry. And the reason why I want to harp on this for a second is that as soon as you label yourself as something, you forever have a scapegoat that you've convinced yourself of as to why you can't do something. If you say you're a perfectionist, anytime something's not perfect, you can lean on that. And you're constantly leaning on this label that you've given to yourself that is not true. Because I can look at anybody that considers themselves a perfectionist and poke holes in every single thing they're doing, because it's subjective, right? You might think something's perfect, but I can look at it and say you could have done all this better. And I think people, number one, need to stop labeling themselves as these characters that are not loyal to them, not loyal to their success and to their journey. But that goes back to your content. I'd love for you to dive into, how the heck you're actually recording these videos, because you have the budget to hire a full tilt team to do all of your editing, all of your thumbnails, film you everywhere you go. You could be vlogging like Sirhan, like you have the budget to do any of that, but you're not. And there's speed, which I think that gives you access to. There's relatability, which I think has been a huge component of you focusing on transformation over transaction. What's the reality of your journey in terms of what you're using to film, how you're filming, what you're using to edit? What's that look like on a basis for you to kind of give people a glimpse as to, how you're actually executing?
No, that's a good question, Mike. I think it starts from the genesis to which what we were looking at before we moved. Like I think the reason I took to YouTube so quickly was the fact that my wife and I actually was watching YouTube and depended upon it to make our decision when we relocated, right? And as I look back on that journey, it was never about production value for me. It was my being like, dude, that guy seems pretty like honest. Like I like the way he's talking. I like her tone. Like she just seems like she's real down to earth, like someone that I would hang out with. And so it was never about, well, that lady had the best edit, the best dropping of bass upon like that high ceiling home, you know? And it was never about that. It was always about relatability. So I kind of embodied that as I took my journey on. I knew that it wasn't going to be about a production value, that it was going to be about my ability to like translate empathetically to who I am as a real person so that when they meet me, and I get this all the time, wow, like you're not much different in real life than what we thought you were going to be, Suman. Like, like, and I love that because that's me. That's like me being on a dating app, right? And having this
Yeah.
crazy headshot, all AI edited out, and they meet me in person. It's like, oh gosh, like, dude, you don't look like a profile pic. So I try to be as real on my video, and that sometimes has to do with production value. I would say the perfection of production value sometimes works against you. And here's the key to that, Mike. As agents right now that are content driven to procure business is the fact that they're losing sight of who their target audience is, right? There's a major shift right now where we have to reshift back to who our target audience is. When I look at my Instagram, when I look at my YouTube, my audience, for the most part, now I'll be speaking to agents a little bit more as we move on, but my audience for sure are clients and potential clients. That's who my audience is. What's happening with a lot of real estate agents, their audience has become other agents, right?
Mhm.
So when they have something cool that they put out, they're like, I need to put out something cool like that too. And now you have this like this arms race of just really these major quick edits of incredibly awesome music, high production value, but it's not necessarily procuring clients. It's procuring likes and follows for sure from other agents, but not necessarily. So every time I put out content, I'm always thinking to myself, is this me trying to impress other agents? Which I fall into that as well. I have some, or this is going to help my clients. There's so many times I've deleted things, Mike, even stories where I thought, this is a funny meme. This will be pretty funny. Dang, you're going to have fun with this. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, my client who's like, hard at work, coming home from his engineering job and like trying to see who they're going to use as real estate agent. They're going to look at this and be like, I don't know if I'm going to call this guy. This guy, I need someone who's taking it more. So again, we have to just understand whoever that target audience is to make sure that we're aiming everything to them. So for me, the reason I went so minimal, Mike, yeah, you're right. I've had many interviews and talks about with production companies and things, and I might do some things in the future. I'm not against all of that, but my bread and butter has been very minimal production value. So I am using still an iPhone. Yes, I have the newest iPhone, but it's an iPhone nonetheless. I don't even use a wireless mic. I use a corded mic, and most of my stuff is just done by a simple gimbal or like a holder on my phone for all of my tours. For my listings, I do have someone that I work with. They do more higher production edits for me, but that's because I'm serving a listing client. But for all my tours, anything on YouTube, anything I'll do today, it's still raw. It's still very minimal. And the reason that is, and you guys might have heard me say this before, is the more simple it is, the more minimal it is, the less excuses that I will give myself to get something done, right? And sometimes I've heard from people like, hey, I'm still waiting to get this camera. I'm trying to get the new Mark D for Canon. I need to get this lens. I need to get that body strap with that, special stabilizer. And all those are not only reasons for you not to begin, but when it comes time, when you're having a long day and you're tired and you're not sure, you have this on your to-do list to get it done, but you're tired. Maybe you'll push it off to tomorrow. If that requires more for you to pack up in your car, for you to power up to make sure all the batteries are charged to go out there, that's going to be another reason, and it's going to be a barrier I knew for me to not do it. So I kept things as minimal as possible, and in so doing, my relatability's been really has kept high. That people look at me like a real person. They look at me like someone that they could connect with, and I need that to come through. I mean, we just had a major election in the States. And a lot of the feedback was always, how relatable is someone? Are they reading a teleprompter? Do they feel like they rehearsed it? Are they being authentic? And for the most part, most politicians aren't, right? But that is a major key factor of how people, beyond even policies, they're trying to see if they can connect with an individual to vote for them. So understanding that philosophy and logic, it's like, I'm going to keep mine pretty minimal, and I just want of who I am to come out, because it's a lot less work for me once I meet with clients to know that I didn't put up a front, that I didn't like, nothing against captions. We can do all of that, but I didn't necessarily read off of something. I just put myself out there in such a way. And if you look at media today, Mike, that's what runs media today. Like there was a time when they told Joe Rogan he was crazy for doing a 3-hour podcast. Like you need to cut that thing up into 20 minutes at best. The key highlights and you're good to go. But he said, look, I have this idea that I want to get to know someone. I want people to get to know someone. I want to give them time to explain themselves. And we're going to do that over 3 or 4 hours. And people say you're crazy. And today he's perhaps the largest media broadcast individual in the entire world. And it's because people want to connect with you. People are empathetically looking to see who you are as an individual. So it doesn't mean I'm not asking you to make 3-hour videos, but just know that your advantage is who you are always. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And even, I look at Joe Rogan's podcast and he intentionally does it in 1080p, not even 4K, when he has the budget to do it in 8K if he wants to. Because again, it just comes across as more authentic, more genuine, more relatable. And
Mhm.
just quickly, what are you using to edit your videos?
Right now, I'm using a program called Filmora.
Hmm.
Filmora. Yeah. So it's pretty intuitive and it's simple. And once it works for me, I for instance, I have an iPhone, right? And if someone told me, hey, Android has a better camera, which it might, and said they gave me all the reasons why this would be better, once you figure out an operating system to which like you're flowing, and it's intuitive, it's very hard for you to change. So for me,
Okay.
Filmora has been that for me. I would say it's equivalent to somewhat like an iMovie for Apple. Filmora is
Hmm.
a higher level would be like Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, but I feel like that's overkill for most people of what you're trying to get done. So I use
Makes sense.
Filmora.
So in the last conversation that we have, we'll link it below. One of the critical talking points that we unpacked was how you established these partnerships with builders. And that was an unbelievable takeaway where you talked about leading with value first and how they then began to give you listings. We won't talk about that again because again it's extensively covered in the previous conversation, but what I would love to cover this time is listings, because a lot of times people will look at a channel like yours that's a ton of property tours, and the assumption is that it's just buyers, but you've also listed some of the most stunning homes I've ever seen. I'd love for you to talk about how you've been able to generate listings from this portfolio that you've created, because it's that a lot of people want to transition to a more listing focused business. They just make the assumption that this isn't a way to do that.
Yeah, no, great question. And I remember hearing that a lot when I first started. Everyone's like, "Hey, I want to be a listing agent, a lasting agent." And there was like this appeal, there was this attractiveness of just handling listings. And as I progressed in my career, I can see why people would say that. I really enjoyed working with buyers, especially in the environment to which I was in. But I understood that listings is typically where you want, especially with some of the adjustments and changes in the real estate profession. Like obviously, listings has become very attractive. So here's what's happened. I never meant it to happen. I remember in the first 2 years of my business, I was saying, "Hey, look, if I just work with buyers, I'm okay with it." But what's happened is this, Mike. For one, people that are going to, well, first of all, if you work with enough buyers, you're going to run the circle of those buyers becoming sellers, right? And so that's happened to me. Even within 4 years, I'm starting to get, the relationships that aren't sticking, so they need to sell their home. Unfortunately, people downsizing already, people having, changes to their job where they transfer back to another state, and so they need to sell. So that cycle is already working for me. And so if you work with enough buyers, sellers will naturally progress into the life cycle of your business. But for me, here's what's happened. People have started watching this because a lot of times when you're covering and keywording areas, subdivisions, cities, the people that live in those areas are, if you know anyone that's going to list their home, they start doing their due diligence. They want to see what the other homes are selling for. They want to see what other homes are being able to, what kind of a value they're getting. And they're also online looking at these as well. So a lot of people that started to consider listing their homes are actually on YouTube as well. They're trying to see who their competition is. They're trying to see what's going on. And so a lot of people started reaching out to me to say, "Suman, we see that you're online. We see that you actually work with a lot of buyers. We value that. We know that you know how they think. We know that you know how buyers think, what they're looking for, what turns them off, what turns them on. Like you've worked with so many of them. Like we value that. We feel like that's going to be really beneficial and really advantageous for you to list our home because you understand that from what the buyers look like, because we see that you do a lot of stuff in this area." So that's one way that you're going to start procuring listing clientele. Another thing that's doing is very subliminal, psychological, but it is actually the most powerful form of marketing that you can do. There's so many listing agents out there that take so much pride in the fact they're listing agents. It's this idea that people come to you. You don't come to them. They're walking up to you and you're not chasing them. That's kind of the sentiment of what it looks like to be a listing agent. And the truth is there's some truth to that, right? But what's happening is as I'm out there shooting my videos, doing home tours, and especially if you know anything about the state of Texas, in the summer it gets really hot. And there's elements, a lot of my videos, again, I'm raw. I know it's sometimes harder for women, but for me, it's like whether my hair's not right, whether I look greasy, whether, my shirt collar is stretched out, I just film anyways, right? And there's a message that's being sent when I do that. Because again, the sentiment of listing agents, like, I'm here in the air conditioned room. If you want me to list your home, you come to me, and I'm out there in 105-degree filming homes, right? So the psychology and the message that people that are considering listing their homes are seeing when they see those videos is like, dude, my listing agent's like super glammed up and just chilling. Like this guy's out there. Like, imagine if he lists our home. I wonder if he would work that hard for our home as well. And that's the message you're putting off. And on top of it, it actually goes to another level. It goes, I wonder if he lists our home, not only will it be on MLS and Realtor and Redfin and Zillow, but I wonder if he'll do a YouTube episode on his channel for us as well. And so these are all psychological points and really ways that you're interviewing without actually interviewing for that listing position opportunity. So here's the truth, Mike. I've probably, if people say, "Are you a buyer's agent? Are you a listing agent?" I love buyers. I love listings, but majority of my business right now, Mike, is listings. I have
Mhm.
28 active listings right now, like close to like 15 million plus in listings right now. And that's crazy to me because I never thought I'd become a listing agent. And 100% has been an extension of my work of attracting buyers through video content. So this the greatest interview that you can put out there for all your potential listing clients is that you're willing to work and that you're utilizing mediums that other people aren't using. So if you ever get me in a listing presentation and I'm last, it's a high likelihood I'm going to win it. I don't, and I'm not saying I'm not bragging that the fact that it's nice that I don't have a listing presentation, I don't have a folder or a slide deck. It's that I haven't needed one yet. I bring my phone and I say, look, everything that Every agent's going to do for your listing, I will do as well. However, where they stop, I can extend. Here's my organic reach. Here's what I created. Here's what also I'm going to do for you. And so now I have a catalog of obviously listings and things I've been successful to do. And that parlays on itself and gives you greater opportunity. But Mike, like you're training what we've done with video content with YouTube to attract buyers and show homes has now led to me becoming a prominent listing agent and people seeking me for the work I'm doing. You know what I mean? So just imagine any job when the boss walks in, how you act like you're working really hard. Now think about doing that all the time, 24/7 for people potentially going to list their home. It's insane and it works. And I'm a testament of how you can start as a buyer's agent with video content and have that flip entirely to becoming, a very productive listing agent.
Yeah, dude, that's so powerful, and I can attest to that because that's how the same way that you portrayed that work ethic and that discipline through your content. That's some of the same reasons why I got feedback of people decided to list with me when I door knocked them, or
Mhm.
when I was, putting out on my Instagram stories that I was going to the gym at 4 in the morning and going door knocking in the afternoon, and I had luxury clients that wanted me to list their between 3 and $15 million homes as a new 24-year-old agent with
Let's
little to
go.
no experience because they were like, I want a hustler. Market's
Yeah.
tough. I want somebody that's going to go above and beyond and work like their life depends on it.
Yeah.
So I love that you talked about that, and that's kind of a good transition into something that I know you're very passionate about, which is the value that you bring as an agent. I'd love to kind of dive into that because I think most people put the value in the brokerage, their team, but you are really passionate about the value that we bring to the industry in our brokerages as an agent. Do you want to kind of give some context to that, what you mean there?
Yeah. I think that a couple things. One, I respect brokerages and offices not based upon their brand or name, but the agents that I know in it, you know? So when I think of a certain brokerage, I don't think like, oh, I don't think of the brand name. I think about the agents that I know that are great ambassadors that do an incredible job at what they do. They inspire me and it makes the brokerage brand look good. So we are frontline as agents. We are the frontline PR and ambassadors for any brokers to which we represent, you know, and I see that value, and I feel like I'm always asking myself, and I always have a lot of conversations with agents of, do you realize how valuable you are to your brokerage? You know, you realize how good you're making them look. You realize how attractive I am to that brand because of who you are and how you conduct your business, you know? And it brought me to this thought. Like I remember back in the 90s, I was in California. I think it was like Kentucky Fried Chicken or something like that. But I remember they installed like the first at that time, they installed the first um, drink machine, like the soda machine that you can walk up there by yourself and like get your own drink. And then when you're done drinking it, you could go up there and like get a refill, you know? Like that blew my mind. I remember I was like, gosh, I always wanted to work the machine and do it myself, but now you can just get free refills. That's crazy. And then after that, I remember every time I would go into another restaurant, I would say, if they didn't have free refills, I looked at it like, why wouldn't you? Like they're doing that. Other people are doing that. Why? And then I remember there was a time when there was like a half the people would do free refills, half wouldn't, you know? And then now we live in a society where everywhere you go, the minimum idea is that you're going to get free refills if you're eating inside that spot. You know, even at a nice restaurant, they're not going to, they shouldn't charge you multiple times for getting a refill. They just charge you once. And I look at the landscape of real estate today and how there are brokerages that are actually paying these agents on top of their commission and closing transaction for the ambassadorship for to which you represent for the growth that they can cause a brokerage. And so it's been interesting to me to have conversations. And there's so many valuable agents out there that I noticed that they're just they're not they're not getting paid what they're worth. They're leaving so much on the table, you know. And I feel like we're in a revolution of the same revolution that they had with free refills and drinks is this idea that brokerages are going to start compensating their agents above and beyond their closed transactions for the growth that they cause their brokerage, you know? And so I feel like we're in the middle of that. And my rallying cry today when I have these conversations is going and meeting agents and just letting them know you have no idea your value, you have no idea your worth, but please make sure you're getting paid in those elements because that's what you're doing for these brokerages. And so I think that's happening right now. I think the revolution of agents expecting more than just a closed transaction, you know, is exceeding and growing, and I'm happy to see that. And it's something that it's another flag that I'm willing to carry and wave and let every agent know. Because at the end of the day, Mike, look, if we are like, if I'm an athlete, this is like my prime right now. Like this contract for the next 5 to 10 years is the best I've got, right? It's when I have the most energy, the most enthusiasm, the most motivation. I cannot waste this. I cannot look back 10 years from now and be like, gosh, I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have gotten more of what I deserve. I didn't realize everyone was getting free refills. I should have asked for free refills myself, you know? And I feel like that's happening right now. And I feel like there's going to be a ton of regret, especially if you look at the symbol of it or the example of an athlete. Once you pass that stage of it being your prime, you can't perform to that degree and that level after that prime. And I've seen it today. I've seen so many agents. They feel like I've done so much. I'm no longer in my prime, but I'm not. I never got anything exponential or residual from what I did at the time that I was hustling. You know.
Yeah, dude. Well, and that brings me to a really critical talking point, which is that your income is a direct reflection of the value you bring to the marketplace. And when you look at somebody like yourself, you have two separate marketplaces. You've got the marketplace of your clients on the transactional production side, but then you've got the other side of the value that you've brought to agents. And I think when you look at these brokerages that are compensating you for in multiple different ways, the ones that are able to capitalize on that to the fullest extent are the ones that bring actual value. And I'd love to talk about that for a second as we bring this full circle, because, when I look at my YouTube channel, and for anybody that's followed some of these conversations, we've recently had on Angie Foster, who went from struggling as a new agent, barely closing a deal, to doing $1 million deals and having a full pipeline. You look at Terrell, struggling with his property tours, closing multiple deals every single month. You look at Brett Schiller, struggling as an agent, closing multiple deals every single month. All of those people are people that have received value from you. And I think that's something that's important to people understand is, what can people expect when deciding to partner with you? Because obviously you and I are partners, and, we have an incredible story that we've been able to write together. And it's just something I'm genuinely proud of. But you've gone on and passed that torch to so many other people now, and we have the proof of it on this very channel. What can people expect, and how did you take these people from struggling on the verge of giving up, having self-doubt, can they make it happen, is social media for me, to now these people that are like social rock stars in their own
Yeah.
way across not just YouTube, but Angie on Instagram and all
Mhm.
these different people? What can people expect? How do you help people, and how do you bring value?
I think ultimately, like, look, I take nothing away. Those are individuals that are highly motivated, that had major whys, and they had incredible work ethic, and they broke through. What I did was I come alongside them, and based upon my experience with the training that we're given, to the nuances to which I've been able to overcome, I can now clearly. It's almost like an auto mechanic. If someone bring, like, when you take an auto car into an auto mechanic, they hear a noise. They're like, "Look, I think that's this carburetor. It's probably a fuel pump." They can feel it because they've been through it. They dealt with it a lot. When someone wants to take this trajectory and go towards video content or primarily YouTube, I can go on their channel and I can pretty much identify pretty quickly, hear a couple things, see a couple things, and be like, dude, if you just added this and tweak that, that would uncoil that a little bit. It would flow that. So I've been able to do that as I partner with individuals. Now, I don't have the capacity to do it to every agent out there, but for those that choose to work with me, obviously I'm going to set my time away. And that's what I've been able to do. I've actually vicariously put myself in whatever market they're in. So if I have an agent that's in Florida, I would say, okay, if I move to Florida right now, this is what I would do. And then um, I vicariously work through them. I have a new agent that is actually partnered with me. She lives in where I used to live in Orange County, California. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for you because I've always fantasized what I would do if I continued with the real estate profession back in my hometown. I'm going to work through you now. I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do, but I want you to do it better or more authentic to who you are. So what I've done is, yes, there is a sense of value to someone who's been able to work through it, to nuance it, and then it creates more efficiency. So I think there's certainly value there. Like for sure, like if I can work with you personally on a one-on-one, I think ultimately there's some value there. And that's what I've been able to do with these individuals and these agents. And so proud of that. Like the people I brought on, more than 50% of them have closed a transaction in the last 3 to 6 months, you know? And so I think that's a testament to not only the training that we provide as a group, but for me to then come alongside you and say, okay, like we're going to do this and we're going to let me help you optimize it and nuance it for maximum effectiveness. And I think there's something to that, you know?
100%, man. Well, I've seen it. And again, you're such an incredible role model, not just based on your work ethic, but who you are as a man, who you are as a father and a spouse. And it's just been amazing to see the level of inspiration you've given so many people to get outside of their own head, raise their own standards, and actually empty the tank and execute at the level that they're capable of. Any final words for people that are looking to take massive action right now?
Um, Look, this was considered 2024 was considered one of the most challenging years in real estate ever. So the fact that you are here, you're active, you have not quit, and especially for those of you that have put out content and maybe said, "Hey, look, I'm not getting the look." You're not supposed to. This is a very challenging year, even for the ones that have 10 to 20 years of referrals of business. It's been very challenging, but always understand that cycles change, right? So if you are running uphill on a treadmill on an incline 10, speed 6, eventually that thing levels out, and you've realized you built some calf muscles, you built some quads, and you built an opportunity when it flattens out to run past other people. So do not stop with the content that you're putting out there. If you're considering whether to execute on this or not, it doesn't matter what it is and when it is. Video content and social media and social platforms, efficiencies, AI, all these things are designed for us to essentially find ways to make up a ton of time and to push forward. But I will say this, Mike. I remember on that first call, because you mentioned in the beginning of this interview, I asked you a question. I just said, I looked at you because I was like, man, like, I don't know you. You're in a different country. I'm considering partnering with you and not someone that's local here in my market. I asked you this, Mike. I said, like, are you in your first quarter of your
Yeah.
of your career, or are you in your fourth quarter? Essentially, what I'm saying is, are you gonna retire and chill out soon, or are you on your way up? Because if you're on your way up and you're in your first quarter, then I'm in my first quarter. I want to run this thing hard with you, right? And I think what I'm excited to say is I think we're still in our first quarter. I think you and I are we're just getting started. We're and so I'm excited for that. Everyone I choose to work with or partner with, the excitement to know that myself as a partner, even you as my mentor and partner, that we're just getting started, man. Like this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm excited for that, man.
100%, man. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. The lessons that we've learned, the ways that we've matured and grown over the last 4 years,
Wow.
I finally, feel like coming into 2025, like this is the year where things are really going to get crazy. And again, the party's just getting started. So, again, brother, grateful for you, proud of you. Everybody, his link is in the description if you want to book a call with Suman to talk about how he can help with your journey as well as myself. And again, brother, can't wait to see what you continue to do, the way you inspire people, and the way that you lead by example.
Can't wait for the new stories, Mike. Man, there's going to be so many new future superstars. Can't wait to see more duplication of stories like this. So, appreciate all that you've done, Mike. From my family, from the bottom of my heart, you know how I feel about what you've done.
Appreciate you, brother. Guys, make
Thank you.
sure to go like, comment, subscribe, check out Suman's content, book that call. We'll see you in the next one.
Let's get it.